Hey everyone, Lynn Marie here with Nathan Church of, I've practiced this for many minutes, On Track Wellness and OTW Martial Arts, and we're about to record an episode of Quit Happens, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to double check that we're still in the frame, then we're going to get started. Excellent. Okay, now I met Nate at a Spiritual Hustle, and if anybody's listening to the podcast regularly, they'll be like, do you spend your entire life at Spiritual Hustle? Because the last, I think, 3 guests have all been from there, at least 3 out of the last 4. But it was all from the same Spiritual Hustle.
Okay.
And, yeah. And
well, there's some amazing people who,
yes.
who went to Spiritual Hustle and are still around Spiritual Hustle.
Yeah, definitely. That day, Mark Lovett had spoken from TEDx San Diego, who was a guest on the show about 3 episodes ago. And Nate and I connected because I think I might have mentioned that I was in martial arts, or you mentioned you were in martial arts, and we connected on that. And Nathan also does speaking, which, you know, is also right up my alley. So we started chatting, and he has a great quitting story, and it has something very specific. There's a very specific aspect of it that I think a lot of people will benefit from, myself included. Right after he told me the story, I put into use some of the things he had talked about. So looking forward to hearing it. Can you take us back to the beginning of your quitting story, which I know starts with you getting laid off?
Yeah, so, which was a shock. I think like most people who get laid off from a position, I think very few people expect it. And it was a company I enjoyed working with. It was a super cool company who moved me from Ohio to San Diego, which was the Midwest kid's dream. You know, I grew up on a farm in the Midwest, so I was living the dream, working on the beach in San Diego. You know, living the dream. Came in, was told I no longer had a position, and as most people can imagine, you know, panic set in, a bit stricken. Went home, called my best friend, who conversely had also just lost his job about 3 weeks before that, and he said, "We'll figure it out." He's like, "I'll help you." And my wife was supportive and was like, "We'll figure it out." She's like, "You're a smart guy. You'll find a new job." So had a severance package, so I did take, you know, we all feel we deserve those couple weeks to kind of chill out. I was pretty confident. I'd never been unemployed in my life, and I still say I've never been unemployed. You know, I've never collected an unemployment check or anything of that nature. So I started looking for jobs and looking what was out there. Wanted to stay in San Diego. Saw nothing that really excited me. Nothing that really, you know, had that feeling of when I would get up in the morning and go, wow, this is who I work for, or what I get to do every day. I was in logistics, supply chain planning, supplier development, purchasing. So that gives me a lot of flexibility. A lot of people, especially with, you know, bringing materials from China, need logistics, supply chain buyers. But just everything just was going to be answering emails, looking at spreadsheets, and that just wasn't firing me up. I even looked at other jobs in other states and all over, and had some interviews and some really great interviews and some other interviews. And I'm a big fan of not wasting people's time, not wasting their time, not wasting my time. I love to help people and benefit people, but I want us each to benefit. You know, like, this is exciting for me to be here, and I know, you know, hopefully exciting for you. And there would be interviews where people would ask me to come back, and I'd be like, you know what, I'm not going to like this job. I know I'll be lucky to stay a year. I'll always be on the hunt for something better. And to me, that just didn't feel right. I didn't want to have just that transition job just to pay the bills. But it was quickly getting to that point where I needed something to pay the bills. But luckily, my wife Amanda is super supportive. I had started On Track Wellness 2 years prior as kind of a fun thing. I was racing motorcycles, again, living a dream. Doing fitness workouts for myself, doing fitness workouts for other racers. We were doing beach workouts up and down the coast. We did them in Mission Beach all the way up to Huntington Beach for other racers, and just having fun. Some supplement products, some other things, you know, just to have fun and kind of pay a bit for the racing expenses, but mostly out of fun. And that's where the On Track Wellness came from, you know, from racetracks. And one of my best friends growing up drew the logo, and so it was a lot of fun. And so I got my personal training certificate during that time, just as kind of fun, just to do it, you know, and was training a few clients here and there, really just all out of fun. You know, website built, it was a bit of an endeavor for a side hobby, but I think it's similar to a lot of people who have something on the side that they put a lot of passion and effort into. There's just something extra, which I think is what when you think about it, that's what excites you. So you put a lot of time and effort into it, but maybe it doesn't pay the bills, so you have your normal job. So my wife said, why don't you just try to do fitness full time? And so I did the typical run all over San Diego doing one-on-ones, being at a park in La Jolla, to someone's house, to someone's apartment gym, wherever I could, trying to make ends meet, and even driving for Uber, just trying to get through. And was talking to a fitness mentor, trying to grow my fitness business and get ideas and help. He runs a successful gym up in Rancho Bernardo. All the meanwhile, still searching Indeed, searching, starting LinkedIn profiles, updating my resume, being on Monster, being on everything, trying to find that job that's going to excite me. And not finding anything that would really get to me. My wife would always ask, could you do that every day? And I'd be like, no. And she goes, why are you even pursuing that then if that's not going to excite you? I don't want you to be miserable and grumpy. And looking back, I think that's what leads to a lot of relationship issues. People aren't happy where they're at 50 hours a week, and then they bring that home.
Yes.
So I was talking to my mentor, and he knew I was a Batman fan. We had talking on it. We'd only met a few times, but we talked a lot. He was a super friendly guy. And he said, it's like in The Dark Knight. He goes, you still have your safety rope. And those of you who aren't Batman fans, if you've never seen The Dark Knight, shame on you. It's an amazing movie. And yes, Christian Bale is the best Batman. He tries to climb out of the pit, but he can't do it when he has a safety wire. He just doesn't make it. So he loses the safety wire, and that's when, sorry, spoiler alert, he gets out. So I was told, my resumes, my profiles, and all those, that's a safety rope that's actually holding me back from succeeding into fitness as a full-time profession. And so I deleted all my profiles, quit applying for jobs, unsubscribed to the emails, and from there it was a slow process, but my success in the fitness and then in martial arts world, which is a different side story, grew from there.
There's so many things I want to pull out of there. One thing that Nathan and I had discussed I'm going to keep calling you Nathan, even though you said Nate.
Either way, it's fine. My mother would appreciate Nathan.
Okay. for Nathan's mom, you had mentioned before we started how old am I? Before we started recording, that you had been a martial artist for years. That was the one constant in your life. And that you realized these other things would just be kind of like hopscotch jobs, just, let's fill in a little here, fill in there, pay some bills. At what point did you realize that very thing? Like, oh, why isn't the constant in my life, and also, like you said, the thing that I want to dump a bunch of money and time into, even though it's technically just a side hobby, when did you realize, oh, this is what I should definitely be focused on?
It was funny with the martial arts, and again, I have to credit, my wife deserves a lot of credit. When we had met, my training was tailing off a little bit. I had a side business, which, everything becomes retrospective, right? When you step back and start to look. I had my professional jobs living in Ohio, but I also had started a DJ business with my best friend growing up, and which now that's his pretty much main job. It's the #1 wedding DJ business in Southwest Ohio. So if you're listening from Southwest Ohio, you should know the good DJs to go to. But then again, that was something passionate and fun to get me excited every weekend. And that business was flourishing, and that's when we met. And my martial arts training was still there, but not a constant. And then when I moved out here, which coming from a martial arts background, that thought of finding a new dojo, finding a new circle of martial artists, finding a new group to train with, especially when you've gotten to a high level, is hard. So it was something that had kind of taken a back seat. And I was racing motorcycles, learning to surf, doing all the Southern California lifestyle. But I came home one day and, we were paying the essential bills, but still everything was a struggle. And I felt like there needed to be some kind of constant income for us. And she goes, have you ever thought about teaching martial arts again? Because I know you loved that and that was such a big part of your life. And I was like, yeah, that would be amazing. And she goes, well, there's a school hiring. And even then, I'd taught martial arts for years, but it was for free. It was to help my school. It was part of my role as one of the lead instructors there. And as I told you before we were talking, that where I came from, no one did it full time. It was their passion. Very, very, very few people you met did it full time. So to my mind, that was still kind of a foreign concept. And the pay was nothing near what I was working in the corporate world, but it was going to be what I loved doing. So I took a job teaching martial arts and moved my fitness program to inside there. And that really became the next step of truly severing anything going back to a corporate job, because then it made me realize a lot of what I was working for in the corporate world was that, and I have a blog about it, is that corporate chase. People convince you need this corporate job to make this much money. If you watch TV, you're convinced that you have to have a Lexus or a BMW or a Ferrari, and if you're not working for that, what are you trying to do? That was kind of my first step of really going, I don't need that much, as long as I'm enjoying what I do every day. And I taught there for a few years, and it was an amazing experience, amazing opportunity. And what made me realize, hey, I could do this myself. So I'm still extremely close with all the instructors and the owner of that academy, and we still support each other a lot. I still go to their black belt tests and help out. But I decided to start my own school, which brought out OTW United Martial Arts, and that was almost 3 years ago.
What kind of martial art is it?
So the unique thing, I came up through a school, which is unfortunately no longer open in Ohio, Silent Dragon Martial Arts, which had two full different curriculums. The Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is very different to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then Japanese Shotokan Karate. I was lucky when I started in martial arts here that I met, became one of my best friends, Jerry Rouse, who owns Setting Sun Dojo. They teach 3 styles of Japanese styles: Japanese Judo, Japanese Shotokan, and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. So it was almost like stars aligned to bring us together, which Jerry in turn ended up quitting his full-time job and buying the dojo, and now teaches martial arts full-time as well. And so it's Japanese styles, and I love it because you get a little bit of everything. And the kids who, when they get in that mood where they want to wrestle and tackle each other, then we work judo and jiu-jitsu. And Japanese jiu-jitsu, again, a little different than Brazilian, but it gives them a chance to do that. And then today, when it's hot, we stick to kicking and punching and forms, so you don't have to get too sticky grabbing each other. And it's really close to my original style, and it gives me a lot of chances to explore and grow. And I'm even back to training myself again in pure Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which in turn helps me share the kids more. So it's been an exciting kind of full circle of, like I said before, of I tell people now I'm retired sometimes because they can't fathom me teaching martial arts full time, but that was always the dream when I was in the corporate world, especially in Ohio, of someday my instructor would retire and teach full time, and then when I got to the point where I could retire and teach with him or take over the school, that was kind of the unwritten thought pattern. But now I'm doing what I plan to do, way earlier.
Which I love. And you mentioned to me earlier, and I don't think, how you no longer have a resume.
Yeah, no longer have a resume. I decided since once you work for yourself for quite a while, which I'm sure you understand, it's not that I can't work for somebody else. Like a lot of people misinterpret it that like I can't take direction or instructions or follow somebody, which I have no problem doing. It's just I think unfortunately our corporate structure feels like people just need to have you there, and I like my open and my flexibility. Like for those who may not know, I'm not sure what time it is now, but I'm sure it's just after 3 o'clock on a Wednesday. I could be recording a podcast and no one's wondering where I am or asking where I am, or if I want to call my mom and talk to her for 20 minutes in the middle of the day, I can do that. And it's just that freedom. And even the same for me on the fitness side of why I didn't go with a franchise. If I want to have some bizarre different class based on capoeira and have you come in and teach it, I can. And it's just the freedom. And I don't plan to go back to work for anybody. Not to say that if an amazing opportunity something super exciting in the right environment with the right person came across, I wouldn't entertain it. But right now I don't need a resume, and like I was saying, that's one additional step I removed that made it harder for me to even apply for a job. So right now, if someone were to contact me, oh, this guy's hiring, send him your resume. Well, if I have a resume, as we all do, like ready to fire from an email, I can do that. But now I don't even have one. And I mean, I don't even know what resumes look like now for that. So it would be way too much.
They're digital in space age now.
Yeah. So that's just one more step I've removed that prevents me from taking that alternate route.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to pull out of Nate's story is the definitiveness with your decision to quit the corporate world. Many of us think we want to quit. We have that desire to do the next thing, but like you said, we keep the cord, keep all those options open. And for a strategic quit, often there's a benefit to that, because if you don't have the financial reserves, or if you don't have Lyft or Uber or something to make up, the difference between when that new thing takes off, because like Nate had said to me before we started recording, there are some lean months when you're starting your own fitness practice.
Yes.
And there's validity to saying, well, let me keep some corporate thing going, but there's a whole benefit to just making that cut, because then you had your full force to put into your new project and a lot more fire under you probably to make it work.
And it does, and I'm sure you've heard people mention this before. And someone told me, in a metaphor once, they said, "There's a lot of people who say, oh, that door's closed now, right?" And yes, I closed that corporate door, but someone else said that, like, you closed it, locked it, and boarded it up. I was like, that's one way to look at it. Yes, I made it really difficult to go. I didn't burn any bridges, but I made it difficult to go back that direction, and it does take a lot, and there's times where there'll still be days where I sit back and look, and somehow an email will get to me with a job offer, and I'll be like, oh, I wonder what the pay is. Because no matter, I think, how many years down the line you are, there's times where there's days you're tired. There's days where you don't want to have that hat on for a whole day, and you want to just shut down, but it's and there is some ease of working for someone else and not being the one responsible, because there is the ability to go, ultimately, I'm not the one answering that question.
Yeah.
So you can have some hands off, and so it does get exhausting at times. And I think that's part of the thing that people need to understand, that if you decide to go that direction, it's not always going to be, sunshine and rainbows, and there's going to be some tough times, but you need to be willing to push through them and just accept it and go. And it was tough, coming from someone who didn't have college debt, I had to make a big mental shift, like, I'll be open, I still have debt from those extremely lean times. And it's amazing once your business does start to grow, and decisions you start to make, like investing in marketing, investing in other stuff and equipment, and you think about the money you spend doing that, and then you think back like 4 years prior of like, wow, I was struggling, like we were having discussions, can I get gas today, or do I need to wait another day? Like, how much food can I buy today? Because you have $100 or less in your account, and your car insurance is coming due, and you can't put that on the credit card. Luckily I still have great credit, luckily, but then I had amazing credit, and so I had credit cards with really high limits, so you thought, oh, I'll never use this, but it starts adding up quick. But I had to make a big shift too, to look at that as a business loan, and now we're paying those business loans as we see it off. But it's not easy, and I applaud anybody who quits anything. I applaud, and I think you have to, you can't leave the door open. You got to shut it.
Yeah.
You got to shut it hard, or make it tough to take that step back.
Yeah.
Because your mind, which I'm sure you hear, like I said, I'm listening to some of your podcasts. I'm sure you hear so many people tell, and you can tell people, I'm sure, in the book, that your mind's going to tell you to go back. Your close friends and family will probably tell you to go back. And those who tried and didn't make it will tell you to go back. And the people who want you back will tell you to go back. But it's always an interesting road for anyone, and everybody, I'm sure, has their own challenges and experience and joys and sorrows, and I can tell you there was many thoughts of quitting the fitness. And some of my close friends who are, business owners, I'm sure you've heard other people, entrepreneurs talk, like, how many times a day do you think about throwing in the towel? And it's not a question of like, do you? It's like, how many times in a week? And I'll be honest, they're much fewer now, fewer and further between than where it was 3 years ago. There was a lot of them, but now there's not many now.
Good. I had done a Facebook Live a while back about the importance of calling it quit. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with like locking and boarding up the door, is if you walk away from something and you don't make that mental break, which I like to call it quit, because then, if somebody who quit smoking and they're offered a cigarette, no, I quit smoking. But you quit corporate job, somebody offers you a corporate, no, I quit looking for corporate jobs. But if you just leave your corporate job, I'd rather not have one of those, mosey over here and somebody offers you one. I think mentally it's hard to just remember and have that bright line of like, no, I don't do that anymore.
And it is, and it's, it's making that decision of, this is where I'm at now. This is, I almost told someone once before, it's like, if you decide I'm done, I'm graduated with school, I'm not going back. It's not like you go, oh, let me go take this class still. It's like, no, you're done with school.
Yeah.
And it's, not that you should ever really be done learning, but it's, you, like you said, you gotta, and that's why when you said, oh, I do quitting by, like that day at Spiritual Hustle when everybody was introducing themselves, and there were a lot of people that day, and you brought that up, and I was like, ooh, this is really interesting. I was like, I want to talk with her more and hear more about this, because that's how you have to look at it. Because if not, you're leaving your safety net, and it's going to drag you back.
Yeah, well, I like that. 2 other things I'd like to pull out of your story. Part of it reminded me of something that Dominic Quartuccio, one of our other guests, had talked about, which is a lot of people, they know they want to quit something. Like you knew, okay, this corporate world, I could find another job, but none of these are lighting me up. And there's a lot of often kind of stress about, well, what's the next thing? And as Dominic had said, well, he just looked at what he was putting all of his fun time toward. He just did a bunch of things that he thought were fun. And you're doing these side businesses that you must have said fun like 12 times while you're describing it. And that's what I think people should do, is take a look at what you're doing for fun, either as a side business or as a hobby, or like, what would you do if somebody didn't even pay you to do it? Because that's what you ended up doing.
And it is, and like I said, like how much retrospect you get when you look back in time. And I think back of our DJ business that we started right when I graduated college, me and my best friend. Neither one of us were doing it for the money, and actually our discussion always was, the day it stops being fun, we're going to quit. And it took a big shift because I moved to San Diego. He called it our Goodwill Hunting move, that he always felt like I deserved to be doing something bigger and better and beyond that area. And he was one of my biggest proponents to take the job and leave. And so we called it like our Goodwill Hunting move. He's like, I don't want to see you here anymore. Like when he goes, another spoiler alert. I'm spoiling movies. When he knocks on the door, he's not there. But if I was doing it because it was fun, and yeah, it was making us money, but I think that's the fear sometimes people have of like, oh, I just want to do it. And then I think maybe people put pressure on themselves that, oh, I love doing it, but, and even us, we had that mentality of, if it stops being fun, we're going to quit doing it. But no matter what you do, there's going to be some non-fun parts. There's going to be work to it, and it's not everything, like I said, not everything is just all fun and games. You need to make it as much as possible. But I think people put so much pressure on themselves, like, oh, then I'd have to make money, and then I think almost like you're trying to justify it to yourself. Or maybe you're trying to talk yourself out of it. Go, oh, I just enjoy doing it on the side. I could never do that for a living. I think people would surprise themselves that if you do really enjoy it that much and love it that much, you'll figure out how to make it work. And then if you get to the point like I was, which I still up to 9 months ago had a couple of considerations and other opportunities to go that would make me a lot of money, but I knew that wasn't what I truly wanted to do. And it really took that big shift and jump to go, no, this is what I want to do. This is the direction I want to go, despite what my family thinks, despite what some close friends think, despite what at the current situation my financial statements think. This is where I'm going to go. I'm going to figure it out. I'm not going to take no for an answer. We're going to make it work. And I think what happens a lot of times with people is, like I said, they don't shut that door completely, or when things start to get a little tough and you start to get to like that back against the wall, you've left yourself so much a gap that you don't have to fight your way out of it. That you're like, oh, I can just sidestep back to this, and then bail myself out. But when you've made that decision and there's nowhere to go but fighting through, then you got to fight through.
Yeah. I heard somebody say the job that you're in, is right if the worst thing you have to do is still not that bad. And I think that's when you have something that is super fun. Okay, maybe you don't love doing the finances for it, but if that's the worst thing you have to do, as opposed to in the corporate world when there may be a million things you really cannot tolerate doing.
Exactly. And I think everybody, like you said, whatever it is, and that's why I love, because your quittings span so much, which I think I've seen. There was like quitting medicine. Then you have another doctor who was quitting medicine. Yeah. There probably comes to a point in almost everything, if you're not enjoying every aspect of it, that can kind of push you to quit. And I mean, for me in the martial arts side, like I always enjoy being on the mat. And my long-term goal is to walk in, be on the mat, walk out. Having someone take care of all that other stuff for me, because I don't enjoy the finances, the budget, the marketing, all that stuff. I mean, I enjoy some of it because I like the creative side. And as one of my friend said, he's like, you like a little bit of that pressure and of like convincing and that the debate of getting people there. But I just love to teach, and time goes fast, and most of the time I feel like my classes like aren't long enough. They're an hour long even with my little kids, and I feel like, oh, I could be here 2 hours with these kids. But there are going to be some parts you don't like, and I think maybe people use that as kind of a justification in their mind too. But I don't know, I'm sure as you see, it's not an easy road.
No.
To leave or quit anything. Like your last Facebook Live, I read the quitting family.
Yeah.
So definitely not an easy one either.
No, definitely not. But worth it. I mean, when it's strategic and it's for the better, and when you do enjoy what you do when you get up in the morning, as opposed to that thought you had, like, would I enjoy doing some more logistics? Is that what I want to get up in the morning and think that I have ahead of me in my day? Not so much. So it's so worth it at the end of the day, because you only have one life. And would you rather dread things at 6:30 in the morning or look forward to them?
Exactly. Like I was at work at 7 a.m. most days, and that's what, astonishes me. I would get up and go to the gym and work out at 6 and then come home, shower quickly, work by 7:15, 7:30. 3 days out of the week, I'm at the gym by 5 to teach my first class at 5:30. And I think about, 6-7 years ago, like the thought of getting up at 4:30 3 days a week would be like, no way. There's a lot of days where I work, when school starts back up in the fall, my Mondays are going to run, I'll be at the gym by 5. By the time I get back home at the end of the day, with about a 2-hour break in the middle of the day, it'll be 8 o'clock at night. I mean, that's a long day.
Yeah.
A long day of moving, a long day of talking, a long day of, for those of us in the service industry, helping others, a long day pouring energy into other people. That leaves you pretty drained. But I love it, and it's my first day of the week, so it's not like I'm starting easy by any means. But yeah, I think the key becomes, I could take a step back, I could go to the corporate world and, life would be a little bit easier. But I think the key that comes back is you getting to that point to go, this is what I truly, truly, truly want. I think almost like a solid relationship, like you got to put a lot of work into it. And I think that's what people don't realize. Like if you want to move past or quit or get to whatever level it is you truly, truly love, you have to be willing to put in all the work and the blood, sweat, and tears and effort it takes to get there. Because I think, you know, for me, what I tell my clients and everybody is, whether it's professionally, financially, you know, relationship wise, you know, fitness wise, it takes a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice to get there. You know, if you want to be there, then these are things you got to quit.
Yeah.
You know? So, and you got to leave behind.
I think that's a fantastic place to end. I really appreciate, let's start that totally over again. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us, Nate.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me. And I'm excited to see how it turns out and your future guests.
I appreciate it. All right. For everyone else out there, until next time, happy quitting. Bye, Facebook.